Electrical panels and electrical technology that goes in those panels has changed quite a bit over the years. Panels in question specifically were manufactured and installed in the 60s and 70s and include brands like Federal Pacific, Frank Adams, and Challenge. So what has happened over the past decade or so is insurance companies have taken an increasingly harder stance on these manufacturers and their panels that are currently still installed and in use in single-family homes and condos across the Palm Beach County area and other areas of Florida. Yeah, the concerns are primarily with regard to the FPE panels, Federal Pacific, and specifically their stab lock line of equipment, which were used extensively in residential applications for a long time. They were the gold standard for overcurrent protection as installed in the 60s and 70s and into the 80s. The issue came about in the early 80s when Federal Pacific was bought out. The company that bought them out started doing their due diligence and realized that a lot of their stab lock line of equipment did not meet industry standards and had no certification. Wouldn't have been an issue aside from the fact that the breakers didn't perform as they were intended to perform. Their 20s and 2-pole 30s were known for either not tripping at their rated ampacity or not tripping at all. It really becomes an issue in an overcurrent or a short circuit condition where you need that breaker to respond and shut off energy to that circuit when one of those two conditions occur. The danger of that not happening, obviously, is either fire or damage to other electrical equipment. Unfortunately, there really isn't any indication to let us know that the equipment is not performing or will not perform as intended, because until one of those two conditions present, you just don't know. It looks like any other circuit breaker in the panel. And so that makes it incredibly dangerous. For the most part, we only hear from customers wanting to address the issue when the issue is made known to them by either a home inspector or an insurance company who is asking them to make the replacement or the upgrade before they will issue insurance on the property. For a long time, insurance companies would allow us to perform an inspection and look for indications in the panels such as heat staining or abuse, loose connections, that sort of thing. But anymore, insurance companies are just mandating replacement. So if you have Challenger, Frank Adams, FPE equipment still in use in your home or at your property, there's a lot of insurance companies that just won't insure the property until that equipment has been upgraded to more current technology. For a long time, this provided what the industry considered an undue cost burden to the homeowner, because for the most part, it was impossible to know whether the equipment that was installed was defective or not. And at this point, I mean, we're 50 some odd years into this equipment's lifespan. And so at this point, it's hard to make a case to argue that it's not worth replacing. The equipment's 45, 50 years old, and there is the underlying concern that the equipment will not perform as it's required to in the event of either an overcurrent condition or a short circuit. So at this point, I would highly recommend anyone with either Challenger, FPE, Frank Adams, any of the equipment that was installed in the 70s and has been in use since, just go ahead and upgrade it. It's a worthwhile cost endeavor, and it will pay dividends in addition to, it'll help you sleep better at night because it's a life safety concern. If the painter does a bad job and the paint doesn't perform, walls look terrible or paint starts to peel. If the plumber does a bad job, your flooring may need replaced, but if the electrical components in your house fail, there's a good chance that it could start a fire, and your life or the your family's life could be in jeopardy. So it is a legitimate concern. So the push to make these replacements really started about 15 years ago. Homeowners started to notify us that home inspectors or insurance companies were refusing to issue policies unless the panels were addressed. Early on, we were allowed to inspect and certify that the panels were in good working order. That progressed into mandatory replacements before insurance companies will insure the home through homeowners and policy. We currently get 2 to 3 phone calls a week for panel replacements, and most of those are noticed by home inspectors when the homes change hands, when the properties change hands. And so the home inspector will note that there's an FPE panel in place for Challenger, Frank Adams, one of the panels that they have identified as no longer standard or no longer acceptable equipment. And at that point, we'll get the phone call asking us to price out a replacement, and assuming that the homeowner is okay with our price, we'll provide the replacement. We usually upgrade to Square D equipment. This is all modern technology, and this panel behind us is in the process of being trimmed out. The rough has already been done on it, and then once we come in to finish out the house, we'll add all of the circuit breakers and the current technology that accompanies those.